Welcome to this video about the rise of one of the greatest fighters in UFC history, Michael Bisping. From his humble beginnings as a young martial artist in England to becoming a household name and the first British UFC champion, Bisping's journey to the top has been nothing short of impressive. But it wasn't always easy for the Count. He faced numerous challenges and setbacks along the way, but through hard work, determination, and a never-say-die attitude, he was able to overcome them all and reach the pinnacle of his sport. So sit back, relax, and get ready for an entertaining and humorous look at the rise of Michael Bisping. From his early days as a scrappy up-and-comer to becoming a legend in the octagon, this is the story of how Bisping became a UFC champion. Michael Bisping was born on February 28, 1979 in Nicosia, Cyprus. His family moved to England when he was just a baby, and he was raised in the Lancashire town of Clitheroe. From a young age, Bisping showed a keen interest in martial arts, and he began training in karate at the age of 8. He quickly developed a passion for combat sports, and over the years he dabbled in a variety of disciplines including judo, kickboxing, and taekwondo. As a teenager, Bisping honed his skills at a local boxing gym, and he soon made a name for himself as a talented and tenacious fighter. In 1998, he won the Northwest Area Amateur Boxing title, and 2 years later he turned professional. Bisping compiled a respectable record of 9-0 as a pro boxer, but he eventually decided to switch his focus to mixed martial arts. In 2004, Bisping made his professional MMA debut, and he quickly established himself as a top prospect. He racked up a string of impressive victories, including a win over future UFC middleweight champion Chris Weidman, and in 2006 he signed a contract with the Cage Warriors promotion. Bisping quickly became the Cage Warriors middleweight champion, and he defended his title 4 times before signing with the UFC in 2007. Bisping made his UFC debut at UFC 70 in Manchester, England, and he picked up a unanimous decision victory over Elvis Sinosic. Over the next few years, Bisping became a fan favorite and a mainstay in the middleweight division. He racked up a string of impressive victories, including wins over top contenders like Dan Miller, Yoshihiro Akiyama, and Brian Stann. However, despite his success in the octagon, Bisping struggled to get over the hump and earn a title shot. He came up short in 2 high-profile bouts against former champions Rashad Evans and Chael Sonnen, and he also suffered a controversial split decision loss to Dan Henderson at UFC 100. Despite these setbacks, Bisping refused to give up on his dream of becoming a UFC champion. He continued to work hard and improve his skills, and he eventually got his chance to compete for the middleweight title. But as we'll see in the next section, it wasn't an easy road to the top. After years of hard work and perseverance, Michael Bisping finally had his breakout moment in the UFC. In 2013, he faced off against Alan Belcher at UFC 159 in a highly anticipated middleweight matchup. Bisping had been itching for a chance to prove himself against top-ranked competition, and he was determined to make a statement. And that's exactly what he did. Bisping put on a dominant performance, outstriking Belcher and controlling the action from start to finish. He earned a unanimous decision victory and solidified his place as a top contender in the division. Following his win over Belcher, Bisping faced off against Mark Munoz in a high-stakes matchup at UFC Fight Night 30. Munoz was a dangerous and experienced fighter, but Bisping was in top form. He battered Munoz with precise and powerful strikes, and he scored a stunning knockout victory in the second round. Bisping's back-to-back wins over Belcher and Munoz were his most impressive performances to date, and they earned him a shot at the UFC middleweight title. He was finally going to get his chance to become a UFC champion, but as we'll see in the next section, it wasn't going to be easy. After his impressive victories over Alan Belcher and Mark Munoz, Michael Bisping was finally in position to compete for the UFC middleweight title. He was matched up against Luke Rockhold at UFC 199 in a highly anticipated matchup, and Bisping was determined to seize his opportunity. However, things didn't go as planned for Bisping. Rockhold was a formidable opponent, and he dominated Bisping for the majority of the fight. Bisping showed heart and resilience, but he ultimately came up short and suffered a unanimous decision loss. The defeat was a tough pill to swallow for Bisping, but he refused to let it deter him from his goal of becoming a UFC champion. He bounced back with a unanimous decision victory over Dan Henderson at UFC 204, and he set his sights on another shot at the title. Bisping's opportunity came in 2017 when he faced off against Georges St-Pierre in a highly anticipated rematch. Bisping had lost to St-Pierre in a close and controversial decision at UFC 100, and he was eager to avenge the defeat. However, things didn't go his way this time either, as St-Pierre secured a submission victory in the third round. Despite the loss, Bisping remained focused and determined. He continued to train hard and compete at the highest level, and in 2017 he finally got his chance to compete for the middleweight title again. But as we'll see in the next section, his road to the title was far from over. After his losses to Luke Rockhold and Georges St-Pierre, Michael Bisping continued to grind and work his way back towards a shot at the UFC middleweight title. He faced off against former champion Anderson Silva in a highly anticipated matchup at UFC Fight Night 84, and he put on a dominant performance, earning a unanimous decision victory. Bisping's win over Silva solidified his position as a top contender in the division, and he was finally given another opportunity to compete for the middleweight title. He was matched up against the undefeated Luke Rockhold at UFC 199, and this time, Bisping was determined to come out on top. The fight was a back-and-forth affair, with both men landing heavy shots and battling for control. Bisping was the more aggressive and active fighter, and he consistently landed the harder and more accurate strikes. In the end, it was Bisping who earned the victory, scoring a stunning first-round knockout to become the UFC middleweight champion. Bisping's victory was a historic moment for British mixed martial arts, and it cemented his place as one of the greatest fighters in UFC history. He had overcome numerous setbacks and challenges to finally achieve his dream of becoming a champion, and he was determined to make the most of his opportunity. As we'll see in the next section, Bisping's championship reign was just getting started. After defeating Luke Rockhold to become the UFC middleweight champion, Michael Bisping was determined to make the most of his opportunity. He had waited his entire career for this moment, and he was determined to make a statement and cement his place as one of the greatest fighters in UFC history. Bisping's first defense of the title came at UFC 204, where he faced off against Dan Henderson in a highly anticipated rematch. Henderson had defeated Bisping in a controversial decision at UFC 100, and Bisping was eager to avenge the defeat. He dominated Henderson for the majority of the fight, earning a unanimous decision victory and successfully defending his title. Bisping's second defense of the title came at UFC 217, where he faced off against Georges St-Pierre in a highly anticipated matchup. St-Pierre had been out of action for several years, but he was still considered one of the greatest fighters in the history of the sport. Bisping was up for the challenge, and he put on a brave performance, but he ultimately came up short, suffering a submission loss in the third round. Despite the defeat, Bisping remained one of the top fighters in the middleweight division. He continued to compete at a high level, and he remains a fan favorite and a respected figure in the sport. His championship reign may have been short-lived, but it was a historic and unforgettable achievement that cemented his place in UFC history. Through hard work, determination, and a never-say-die attitude, Bisping overcame numerous challenges and setbacks to achieve his dream of becoming a champion. He faced off against some of the toughest and most skilled opponents in the sport, and he consistently proved that he belonged at the top. Bisping's impact on the world of mixed martial arts cannot be overstated. He paved the way for other British fighters to follow in his footsteps, and he inspired countless fans around the world with his tenacity and determination. He may have retired from active competition, but his legacy will live on forever. Thank you for watching this video about the rise of Michael Bisping. We hope you enjoyed the ride and learned something new about one of the greatest fighters in UFC history. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and be sure to subscribe for more great content. Thanks for watching.